based on actually a broadcast that was on the national radio channel. Somebody did an analysis of community currencies, a pretty poor one, focused a lot on the Furi Kipu work, a certain amount on tool banks in Toronto, but led off on Curitiba, and followed it with Bernard had, well, 15 minutes in there. Anyway, the Curitiba thing I like very much, particularly as a bridge towards small business taking on the same process, which is where I'm trying to take it, of course. But nothing came of that. The article went out, nobody paid any attention, as they don't. And I spent about 3 weeks grooming a particular small business, not that small, who would have been an anchor to the whole process. But gradually he just disappeared off the site. It was getting too complicated for his world. So nothing came of that Curitiba. So I put out the second one, which is sustainability. Yeah. Because we've got a lot going on in our community at the moment about sustainability. And I felt it was very useful to try and focus people down to it. Now, actually, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've had several instances of having community currencies, my models, and myself profoundly disparaged in public by local authority figures at some level. No big authority, just people who have opinions and are well known. Because there's no end of opportunity to disparage. And if the general context around here is, oh, Michael's been doing this for 30 years, what does he know about it? Besides, he always gets it wrong. Then it becomes legitimate for somebody at, for instance, a Chamber of Commerce mixer. When I was asked by my neighbor to explain what I do and I started talking about open money, a third party chimes in and says explicitly, there's no point in doing anything like that. The whole idea is incompetent. The particular one is useless. Michael is a bit of an idiot. And besides, it doesn't work at all. Now that is a group, a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Another time, one of my beneficiaries who has received about $20,000 in grant aiding through this Community Way method, went to one of the businesses who was one of the donors to his charity, and at the cash counter, the person said, oh, we're not doing that anymore. It doesn't work. Now, that would be equivalent to me going into his business, waiting for his customers to show up and telling them that the business is no damn good and the customers are no damn, you know, there's a level of acceptable disparagement that I am no longer inclined to accept. So the second piece, the sustainability piece, I'm going very hard at the issue of substantial realities. What the hell is going on in economies? But rather than try and get people to understand their way through an organized answer to it, I'm throwing them the straight question. Do they like the idea of a money go round? They know what money go away is. They know the money gone. Everybody agrees the stuff goes away. The question is, how about stuff that comes around? Would that in principle be an attitude of any interest? Now, the reason we're going that direction is that it's a much, much easier pill to swallow. I can basically get that down most horses' throats in about 5 minutes. But the horses do take a little bit of corralling. You need to push them into place a bit. But the direction we're going now is entirely on the basis of, is your head up to this money go round concept? Let's not deal with the details. Let's just deal with the general value and benefit. So anyway, that's why I wanted to send you those pieces so that you get a sense of the local strategy that I'm engaged in at this point, and perhaps why.
And how is the this general systemic level that people consider a word like community to be at in your part of the world. It might not be very different from anywhere else, but if you describe the money go round, of course the boundaries of the diameter of that go around might be is of course the question. And then I don't know how people are feeling towards the Canadian state and the community of all the taxpayers in the country, or the community of taxpayers just in British Columbia, where of course some kind of a go round is also implemented. There's a bit of piping, of course, as you described, it's more going out than coming in always. But
well, the specific visceral, one of the things I ask somebody is, if I could give you a special marker pen that you could use to make a mark on the corner of a $20 bill, and because of that action, the bill would automatically come back to you somehow or other. Don't worry about the magic. The bill comes back. If you had such a pen, would you use it? And of course, when you come down to the visceral one man in the economy world, me in the world, I don't care about fiscal policy. I don't know what the banks are doing. I'm not interested in the local tax base or whatever. I'm just interested in my own survival. If I could mark a bill and know that it came back, it's something I would do.
Right.
It's interesting. I've pushed that question now on maybe a couple of dozen people. Never missed with it.
Right.
They cannot get around the fact, and they can see it. They can viscerally feel it. I put two bills on the table in front of them and say, look, that one's unmarked. You spend it, it's gone. This one, we put a special mark on it. It's now going to come back and support you. It's income security. How would you like that? Oh, and it'll go on forever. It'll never stop. Every time you spend it, it's going around and coming back. Now, nobody has been able to say, I wouldn't do it.
Right. Why would they?
Exactly. So,
yeah, it's a nice way to. I mean, it's kind of a approach to a. Well, it's an approach to an approach, I guess, to what I often. In other contexts, mostly, I mean, we do a lot of leadership development, education stuff here at the Institute as well, where, of course, the question of how much influence has an individual on the overall systems, on the society, on the economy. And once you're confronted with big, complex systems that are complex by their nature, because the first thing you can say is that you never know what kind of effect you have, even if you try really hard and start from the top and give it all the power and might you have. Thus, the only very practical, as we said, visceral way maybe to approach these complex situations is that you just find a principle that holds true for you on any level, and probably is easiest to start at the individual level, and just apply that and then see where that goes, assuming that the bigger system can't be really go wrong if there is a coherent principle applied on all levels. And
that's where we're going. You see in that sustainability document, just at the very bottom, the end of the text, the second paragraph. So please get your head started on money go rounds.
Yes.
And I emphasize right away, networks, plural. Imagine many such currencies, many forms, variety of scales and purposes, all of them money going round. Now, that basically boxes them or puts them in context. They can no longer say, but what size is it? It's any size you have well like. You want one for 20 people, you want one for 20,000 people, you can have them both. Okay? So I'm taking the question away from, Michael, are you doing it right? Which is the usual response inside a community. Somebody introduces an initiative. That initiative becomes isolated because everybody pulls away back from it to watch it. Let's see how this guy does with this thing. And it's particularly pernicious when it's originating here, profit in his own land stuff. So I've had 30 years of people saying, well, interesting idea, Michael, but you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. That's a strangely prevalent attitude in these currency circles in general. That's probably not only against you, like towards you.
No. It's natural paradigm reaction. It's when somebody comes with an idea that they've not contemplated before, their first reaction is, I don't like it, I don't believe it. It's not wrong. Somebody's doing this badly.
Well, it's also curious amongst the people who are actually proposing, we had a Bitcoin guy on our course at the university in March, who at the end of the course said, well, that was a really terrific course and I learned so much. It's just curious that in the monetary reform world, everybody is really enthusiastic and happy, even though they're up against a very big system that they try to change. In the Bitcoin world, everybody is completely really energetic and of course entrepreneurial and throwing themselves into, just in this what you call community currency world, it seems like everybody is fighting with everybody. How is that? Well, we didn't have a good answer.
Yeah, that's got a lot to do with the money one way or the other. I mean, if Bitcoin or blockchain didn't look like it was going to be profitable, I wonder how much action would be going on in there.
Right.
Frankly, if people started seeing community currencies as viable, functionally, financially supportive, if they start paying wages to a staff from process, not from grants, not from philanthropy or whatever, and not from Ponzi schemes or self-created funding, which is all too often the blockchain attitude. So if we had some viability evident, then I think we'd see a lot more shift very much more quickly. Non-viability has been the definition of community currencies for about 20 years. And it's not very encouraging space.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the new mode that we're working on, because whereas previously our model had to be build the system, populate the system, groom the system, and that stuck you in singular community currencies, LED systems, or community way, or whatever. We're now saying, listen, here's a platform, it's wide open, anybody can join in 20 seconds, nothing to it, just take a name and you're in. And therefore the propagation is much different, and we can afford to shift our strategic focus away from build the Colosseum to just attract the players.
I guess this talking in plural terms about currencies always was actually one of the things that really stuck with me when I first saw the first couple of YouTube clips where it was you drawing these barrels on a whiteboard. I saw it probably 6-7 years ago. That this idea of it is always plural currencies overlapping, interacting, being interfacing in the person. That was always there, kind of. It kind of feels like a refocus on this if you describe it. Well, if you now say that's the pitch there in this document.
Well, we're not in a position to implement it. You see, previously with single currency and with our limited point of sale capacity. In '99, we had a multi-currency smart card out of Cambridge. You know about that? You heard about that one at all? I
haven't heard about this one, but it is one of the things that people, well, I met a few people from the smart card industry, so to say, and people trying to look at this and implement it. And it seems the notion was always there. No, of course, you can put as many currencies on a card as you like. It was always just curious to see that never really took off anywhere. I need to check again. I heard the last thing I heard from Brixton was that they were actually, because they again they seem to be kind of a experimental playground for new entrants to the industry, where there seems to have been somebody who wanted to get them onto NFC cards, and instead of issuing their own NFC cards, I thought I heard them say, I forgot to check that with them afterwards, but I thought they said they would put that onto the Oyster cards that people have from the London Underground system anyway. Wasn't quite sure how easy that is done.
Okay, well, there's a guy in Cambridge called Christopher Curry. He runs a company called General Information Systems, or GIS. And in the 1980s, he was responsible for the design and implementation of a computer to outdo the Apple. It was sponsored by BBC. It was called the Acorn. It was a beautiful piece of work. It was multitasking in 1980, and it was far, far better than the Apple. But of course, markets, process, etc. Apple yielded. The Acorn died. Chris Curry later went on to several initiatives, including a thing called the Mondex card. Do you remember Mondex?
No, I never heard that term.
It was in the middle of the 90s, it was supported by Wells Fargo, NatWest.
Well, I was firmly rooted in Germany at the time. They had their own little prepaid card experiments, but that one never was pitched.
Mondex was supposed to be the cash-carrying card for multi-currency, stored value, pop it,
right?
Anything, any place. It was pre the euro. It got jammed because the Oyster people, and Chris Curry was part of the Oyster world as well. The Oyster people wanted to introduce small purchases, newspapers, cigarettes, that sort of thing. And the Bank of England said no, because you're becoming a monetary issuer. And if you do that, we hold the bucket. And all you do is carry the costs. So there was no profitability in the Mondex model.
So that was before the e-money legislation?
Oh, yeah, way, way back. We're talking about
okay.
95.
That's always the story I hear about the e-money legislation, that it apparently came about because of these new technologies where the value is actually stored locally on a chip, and which didn't fit the electronic accounting money legislations or understandings anymore.
The main problem that the Bank of England had was that it turned the London Transport into one of the biggest banks in the country.
Right. And just in terms of holding accounts and value for people.
In terms of holding the value, and in particular, holding a cash reserve in the hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yes.
On which they would be earning interest, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, the bank hit back at Mondex. It never went anywhere, although it was nearly taken up in Hong Kong at one point, but then it was superseded by a similar, different. Anyway, we built a model on theirs for, I think it was $10,000 of joint work between us and GIS. We created a multi-currency smart card that could hold a limitless number of currencies in up to 6 purses, and was an offline transfer. You didn't have to have any internet connection to make a transfer between 2 cards. It was all done in one small device, a double slot, like a calculator, you know, but one slot for one card, one slot for the other, transfer between them with a couple of keystrokes. Well, we did that in '99, and it was so far ahead of everybody's understanding that we got absolutely no pickup from it anywhere, not even locally. So we are familiar with trying to get things out into the mainstream and being impeded by institutional anxieties, small town bookkeepers who don't understand how to keep books. That's very common. Most small businesses don't understand their business, and their bookkeeper runs them, and the bookkeeper doesn't want to do anything except what they've done for the last 30 years. So the idea of introducing a new currency stream into the business is quite freaky for a lot of those people. So pushing that rock up the hill, well, we'll let it happen, but we're not going to be putting our efforts into that. We're going to be putting all of our efforts into this simple propagation of a simple meme. Money is available. The money go around is here. Do you want to play? And I'm not sure where that'll take us or how quickly. But I do know that the processes that we've been assiduously doing for 20, 30 years have not produced the results that we had, I think, assumed or presumed they would. So when in doubt, do something slightly different. And that is therefore where we're going.
And
anyway.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions. I already forgot the first one. I was counting 2 and I already forgot one. But the one that stuck was so with this focus on plural currencies and many, also taking it to, I mean, this is already a level of abstraction for most people who are just used to that one money that they hold in their wallets, and they think it's all the same anyway. Is that? I mean, I know you mentioned the other time that you had these always these disagreements with Bernhard Lietaer, in particular, with his work on money and sustainability. There, I mean, the notion of diversity always being superior to any monolithic system in terms of resilience and thus sustainability. Is that something where you would have common ground with him, or was that even helpful as a reference for your work?
Give me that one again. I'm sort of lost the thread of your question there.
Bernard Lietaer did this work with his complexity theorist and the theoretical ecologist.
Okay.
And out of which, I mean, the one image that always sticks with people is that curve of sustainability, where it's sustainability being described as a trade-off between efficiency and resilience being determined primarily through diversity. And that's his argument, taking this work, which they did in a purely theoretical environment first, but then saw applicable to many different kind of systems, flow systems like ecosystems or electricity grids or monetary systems, being Bernard's domain, of course, where the solution would be more currencies is always more resilient because people have any number of fallback mechanisms. Is that actually, do you apply that?
No, I think that I think Bernard has fundamentally totally misunderstood complexity theory, resilience, and the context. As a systems theorist, and I am a systems theorist, I read physics at Cambridge, I did an MBA, I've got a lot of other practical experience, and I've worked with cybernetics people and systems analysts for about 30 years in different ways. And Bernard has absolutely no idea what he's talking about in this field. Resilience is a function of the component process. And actually, the conventional money system is extraordinarily resilient. One of the things that Bernard has pointed out is that it's actually had about 500 failures in the last 20 years or something like that. He says that regularly. That is resilience.
Right.
If you're going to examine the relationship between multiplicity and resilience, you have to be specific about what is the element that is multiple or singular. Now, there was a very famous paper in the 60s about the stability of multi-part systems, where it pointed out that if the positive feedback loop puts you towards aggregation rather than differentiation, that is, if things tend to come together to be bigger, then you create more instability by being more linear, more efficient. That would be in line with what Bernard is saying.
Yeah.
But you see, the quality of what makes it stable or unstable is not its mere numeric preponderance. We got a lot or we got a little. That isn't the issue. The issue is, what is the basic functionality of the thing that you're exploring? Now, Bernard and many others have spent an awful lot of time arguing that interest and banking and so on and so forth are a problem, the problem. If we can handle the banking and the interest, then positive money will live, etc., etc. And since you ask, my opinion is that that's dead wrong, and that the entire analysis of resilience that Bernard has been putting out is trivially flawed. And by trivial, I mean that a competent systems analyst would look at the way that that argument is presented and just laugh it off the stage. It does not score amongst professionals. It may read well in little glib outputs, but as I'm going to pull it again, as a systems analyst, it does not fly.
So they have, and I'm not quite sure what how to describe these functionalities of the nodes you're looking at, or how you express that. I mean, they have resilience and interconnectivity as the two elements that.
Yeah, like the metric system. Would Bernard advocate that because the metric system is unitary and it's a total system of measurement and singular, that it is unstable or that it creates instability? On the contrary, were we to create multiple measure systems, we're not creating resilience, we're creating confusion, dispersion. Now, I mean, that's a very trivial example. The banking system is not the metric system. But you can see that the analysis of many parts and how do they work together, is not as simple as, many is better than less. On the contrary,
well, yeah.
in some respects, you want stability, go unitary. No.
Well, I mean, they have a few more trade-offs in there, being and that, of course, many being better is a very crude statement. They would say it's more, well, you have more fallback mechanisms, which of course is true, but there's always a trade-off if you overshoot, and that's why that's the bell curve that also goes back down to
many of what is better, Leander. It's not that, first of all, it's many is better is a loose statement in the first level of unsubstantiability.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's not what they say. They say there is also, you can overshoot that, and then you have something that doesn't do anything anymore. That is in that picture as well.
That doesn't figure anymore either. In neither case are they defining the stability of the element that they're questioning as a component. And it's the stability of that element and its functionality that is the critical factor. And if you get down to what this is about, from my perspective, none of that argument holds any water. It's loosey-goosey. It's like people talking about relativity and the uncertainty principle and quantum living and so on and so forth. It's pulling terminology from places where they have a meaning into places where they don't. So that's question one. And I want to leave that one with you because it's a big one. What's question two?
It might no, well, it was well, I can't remember what the question was, but there's this lead on from Discord, and maybe that is already kind of answered indirectly. Based, sometimes even in the presentation that we give, or when we have to introduce the topic of complementary currency or idea to people, and then being pressed on, okay, then show me where it works and what it does deliver there. There wasn't a hell lot to say often. I mean, there's a lot of particular time banks being quite good to evidence in a social return on investment methodology, for example, that the interactions of people participating in the time bank is of a different quality than whatever anybody has ever achieved with throwing money at a problem. But when it comes to economic impact, then it was always everybody just citing Stoddard on the Weir Bank, and I often would say, look, there is a business-to-business currency world where impact sits in the profit that the company makes out of running that currency. Since these companies exist, I guess it works on some level. So let's take the evidence, the existence of the industry as proof. But then
the evidence is entirely there. I mean, when we started Land Systems in '82, there were already about $3 billion of trading in commercial barter networks on a per annum. It was solid. It was very clear. We know these boats work. This dog hunts, this bird flies. There was no doubt about mutual credit. Time banks were already out and established and had been for 3,000 years in certain ways. So, all the Graeber stuff about the origins of money and trade and community and so on. We know this stuff works. Now, for me, the VIR is the perfect example of stability gone nuts. If the VIR had differentiated into canton by canton localization, it would have had vitality and power. But it didn't. It went in a very conservative Swiss direction. And remember, in the 30s, the Swiss were not bankers. They were cowmen, and they made cuckoo clocks. After the war, the Swiss were bankers because there was an awful lot of money found its way over the Alps. And that's basically when the Swiss became financial experts, not until then. And what they did with the VIR to try and make it into a good thing was they made it a big thing with institutional overheads all over the bloody place, and they reduced the variety, the flexibility, the possibilities within it by making it monotonic. Classic example of going in the wrong direction for the wrong reasons. But these are Swiss. Can't be surprised.
Well, they were the only one that survived for 80 years. I mean, that at least is something that many people are quite impressed by to see, when otherwise the news are full with the currencies that only make it a few
very
years.
impressed that it survived, Leon. Very impressed that it survived 80 years. I'm also very impressed with the fact that it runs at 0.6% of GDP. Now, if 80 years gets you to 0.6%, how long do we have to wait before it actually gets anywhere real? And that's my problem with the adulation of the beer. I think it says something about technology and process. It says something very meaningful, but we are generally taking the wrong message from it, regarding it as successful, whereas frankly, it's a bloody failure. Effective failure, persistent failure, will fail for thousands of years if it carries on like that. Just won't get anywhere.
It's just the only thing that it's easy to point to, also in terms of references and publications. If you tell people about the business-to-business world, and then they go, okay, then show me, and you can just go, well, there's the URTA website, but that is also not very data-rich, and otherwise I can't really prove you what works and where and how much and to which extent. That is just very opaque industry, it seems, even to those who try to poke. That is just very hard to engage people who demand evidence. You can't feed them anything but those few people, these few papers on the internet.
And it's even worse than that. I mean, when the Wright brothers were flying, there were a lot of people who would point to it flying by and say, they will never get that to work.
Right.
Now, well, that's the level of psychosis that people have about new ideas. It shall not be there. It cannot be there. That does not fit with my worldview. It does not exist. Now, what we can say to anybody is, yeah, there's a Veer. Yes, there's air miles. Yes, there's loyalty points throughout the grocery system. Yes, there's this. Yes, there's that. There's all these circularities of contained currency that feed back towards some core place. The air miles, the benefit of some particular business or corporation. And these things have been running for 20, 30 years, and there's plenty of evidence there. The question is not to try and, I think, fix people on the Veer is good, so much as the Veer is evidence that a process is practical. Let's look at the variety of processes that are available. Now, I've just sent you an email, which I think you should take a look into. It's this guy, Chris Curry, I just mentioned.
Yes, I looked him up. He has quite a Wikipedia page even.
Now, there's. I noticed that I didn't send you the. I'm going to send you the original because it also has an attachment, which is very interesting because he's talking about a major initiative in Cambridge for bringing seniors onto cards.
There was a link to this Cambridge Care card.
Yeah,
on the bus passes.
There is that, but you need to see the actual attachment.
Right.
Which I think I sent you. Did I manage to get the attachment in there?
No, there was no attachment to it, no.
Not on the last one, but there should be on this next one I've sent you. Yes, it is. The attachment's gone through. What Chris is doing in Cambridge with major institutional support is basically a gateway onto which all sorts of things can be loaded. And he's specifically suggesting and asking this. Now, this goes way beyond Bristol Pound. It's a whole different thing. Now, I don't have the details on it. It's just that this man's competence is unparalleled. There's no question of his ability to deliver. And he will. So there will be equivalent to the Cambridge Care card, pretty widely available throughout the UK, pretty damn fast. And it would be prudent for people who are engaged in this area to be up to speed with that possibility and what can be done with it.
The attachment mail didn't come through.
Didn't it? The second one I sent you was just without any title, and it just contained the first message from Chris, and it shows an attachment. So I don't know. I can email it to you another way if you like.
Sorry, Michael. I was gone for about 20 seconds. My Wi-Fi paused and then seamlessly came back in, but I lost a sentence or two. And
Okay.
it was, you were saying that basically this care card will be spread throughout many places very quickly, and then go off.
It could be. It could be very fast indeed, because it's technically compatible with just about everything, and it's also a financial good deal. And so I think this is the sort of thing we've got to be prepared for. The platforms will emerge, and we need to be taking appropriate advantage of those opportunities rather than being outside the tent.
But this card primarily is a transaction mechanism, right? It's the rails to handle units of value. I guess the other problem with what you showed me in open money and many other currencies basically is to actually establish a unit of value somehow that is not the already established and known pound sterling somehow, and that might.
I'm not bothered about other units of value. I'll go with the pound, the euro, the yen, the whatever. I think the unit of measure is the significant factor in a mutual currency, not the measure of value.
Right. Okay. But okay.
The thing level.
Well, but so establishing valuable units, put it this way, is still
making the money work, i.e., passing the Minsky test.
Yes.
You know, anybody can create money, but who takes it? What's the acceptance?
Yes, and for that, I mean, as much for even for Bitcoin as for any new software that was developed and touted about from people saying here this you can use this now for your currency project. Well, like, okay, that's great, thank you very much, but that's not that doesn't seem to be the biggest bottleneck for people on the ground actually establishing a new currency somewhere.
No, not at all. It's not the technology, it's the overall perception and the consideration of benefit. You talk to somebody about starting a currency in, I don't know, Basingstoke or Carlisle or somewhere, and they're overwhelmed with the problems, the complexity, the vagueness, the uncertainty, whatever. So what will be effective will be systems that are easy to adopt, require little induction, no expensive technology, no overheads worth considering. And well, that's the route for our Curitiba concept. Is get a
it just cuts down the problems to actually the core issue and lets people focus on that instead of managing software and distribution channels and all that at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've basically pitched our community way models at the sort of 100,000 and up level, like go out, raise $100,000 for charities, local cause or whatever. It can be many causes, can be one. But you can do a community way model for $500. A business could say, I'm going to donate $500 of future service to the school. And then parents buy it from the school, they've got the money, they patronize that business. And it can be as small as $500. And it doesn't require 500 businesses involved, it can be as small as one business. Now it's more effective, of course, as soon as you introduce cross-trading. So we generally say, see if you can get 5 or 6 businesses together to try this. Each of them pitch in 500, 600 or 1,000 community pounds, donate to a particular thing, perhaps a youth project, perhaps a hackathon, a maker fair, something, so that people get paid for what they do at that event in a currency that they can spend with the sponsors. Now that was the Curitiba model that we proposed in that article. And as I suspected, it got absolutely no grounding, no traction in our own community. But basically, I still think the model is that sort of model is the way to go. Small, simple, available.
Right. Yeah, and then it totally helps on the simplicity and availability of implementation. If the rails are so firmly established that everybody has the card in their wallet already.
Yeah, that's awful.
That is actually the other question that I forgot earlier, and that was very simply: do you know if Curitiba is still ongoing or what the state of that is?
No, it only lasted about 4 years in that model because the mayor got diselected, And the incoming political regime was, of course, much more on the level of, damn it, buses are costing us, you've got to pay to be on the buses, and we don't want these little peasants on the bus anyway, you know?
Right.
They cancelled the engagement by the government in this process. It just disappeared within about 4 years. But by that stage, they'd already established a ridership process, they'd established all sorts of other things in the community, and it had an effect for the next 20 years.
Right, but there are no tickets handed out anymore for trash collection that can be spent on anything.
I don't believe so. I haven't done the research on this. I'm just... I tried a few times, and I asked people who traveled over there to go and have a dig around. Now people ask me, because there's this big currency conference, the academic conference in Brazil next month, and some film teams asked me if who they should talk to in Curitiba to make a movie about that currency they heard of. And I said, go do some desk research first. I'm not sure there is anything to be filmed. I don't think there is. I think that the consequences to be filmed. They created a very high level of local transportation. They've got lower unemployment than any other city in Brazil. They've got lots of consequences. But the action that created the transition has never been persisted. That's quite common in this place. And that's why we're saying get out of government. Don't rely upon a government to do this, because the government will change its mind on the whim of the elector or the personality of the incumbent. And the government is also the biggest player in any such economy. So you don't want to give them the whip hand as well as the momentum. So we've always been on the argument that you can do exactly the same thing as Curitiba, but you should do it through small business rather than through large government.
Right.
And that resilience, that is what Bernard should be talking about. That's a perfect example of resilience through multiplicity. But it's based upon what you're multiplying. It's not based.
I'm not confident enough in the math and the schematics of what he mapped. I had the impression that would fit into what he tried to model. It wasn't just him. It was these.
Everything fits into what Bernard models. That's the trouble with Bernard's models. Bernard sees a big picture on the wall and says, "Isn't this lovely?"
In that case,
critical analysis. He
didn't do much of the modeling. That was the ecologist and the complexity theorist. The Alice Gerner was, I think, mostly the mathematic driving engine there. But if you sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said they missed the entire point.
Did you the papers that you mentioned earlier about this other approach to the approach to multiplicity there? Do you have, are those really available somewhere? Could you point me to those just to?
That was Adams and Gardner in Nature magazine, and I think it was about 1968. I read it in my high school class.
All right.
Before that, it would have been 64 or something. And I couldn't trace it or find it, but it basically said, if you're trying to get a bunch of cats together, their diversity is explosive. Cats are not herdable. If, on the other hand, they're herdable animals, then it's very easy to get them in one place. And it's the distinctive capacity of the item that is critical to whether more is better or more is worse. It's how does that thing behave, not are more better per se.
Right.
That's basically the core of it. You know, have you seen David Snowden's work on complexity?
No.
Okay, well,
something else.
I'll send you a link on this one.
That would be great.
Friend, I think he's a Welshman who's got. I put a word up, Cynefin. It's the sense of place. Cynefin is what is the culture of your being in the place where you grew up. The whole show. It's everything.
Right.
He's got an analysis of complexity that points out that we generally try to expert our way out of trouble. Systems are either ordered or disordered. when a system is fairly well ordered, you can either have simple procedures that are always going to work. The checkout clerk at the grocery store does this. You know, there are procedures which can be absolutely cut and dried, cut and paste. When you get above that level into managing a grocery chain, then you're looking at a complex, busy process, much complication in it. What we tend to do is import experts who have many theories, and we work best practice in that space. The trouble is that most of what we're dealing with is not in that world anymore. It's actually in the complex and unstable space. And our strategies for interacting with it are very, very different. Must be different. I will send you a link on this, guy.
Would be great. I just tried to find this Adams and Gardner. You said I couldn't find it on Nature.
No, I looked for it a few years ago and I couldn't find it either. But I'm
not
I don't follow that stuff.
There's also quite generic last names, which there might be many of. And,
there could be a lot of different Gardners, and there might be a lot of different.
I'll start with your Snowden paper then. Yeah,
Dave Snowden. I can actually just find the absolute link. That's the easiest way. There's a beauty about longitude in there. You know about longitude? How they finally found out where we were on the planet. It's great.
All right.
It's this.
Oh, there's some clips of him speaking about managing complexity. I might actually have seen him somewhere sometime or watched a video or something.
Cognitive edge is his game, and
what was that very exotic sounding word that you mentioned earlier? The sense of place.
Conniving.
Oh right, I saw that word now coming up in the Google search.
If my machine will actually switch out, it is. Will that work? Yes, it did. Good. Yeah, there's a link for you.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Cool.
Well, it's that edge we're dealing with. Basically, it's the edge between trying to manage complication or trying to live in complexity. And it's very important to know the difference. And I think that's pretty seminal to the difficulties I've had with the community currency world over the last 30 years, is that most of the people involved are actually very conventional. They're very well-intentioned and trying to do it right, and they go with old procedures, old attitudes, old understandings, and get old results out of that. Anyway.
And of course, having blown the top off that whole money question is for most people so surprising that there is a whole world of possibilities behind that they just get very enthusiastic and then throw themselves into it without much consideration on what it might take and how that might go. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to work with these people. It's always good to see people enthusiastic and marveling and kind of exploring things with curiosity that then becomes a lot more complicated.
Reverting back to your comments about Bitcoin versus community currencies, one of the things about a lot of the people involved in Bitcoin is that they're highly competent, highly motivated, highly intelligent, highly aggressive people. Whereas people involved in community currencies tend to be of a very different nature. So, and it's a lot to do with the expected outputs. The blockchain people want to change the world and get rich.
Yeah, it's one after the other.
Yeah, and community currency people are just saying, let's get this show on the road somehow. And so there's a difference in context, attitude, philosophy. There's also a difference in function. I think we're going to find that 99% of the funding that's invested in blockchain is going to be lost.
And people are happy with it. I mean, they know it's a gamble. That's sort of
Yep. Bet.
Whereas failure in the community currency space always seems to be a personal catastrophe to most people.
Which is another reason why I'm saying go multiple. When you have 1,000 currencies in your community, you begin to understand the difference between a currency that persists, a currency that comes and goes, and some of them will stop and start and restart and stop again, and others will die and never be raised again, and should be. But that's the Minsky thing. Enable everybody to create currencies and then deal with the ones that work. Don't waste time trying to build one that's perfect for everybody. Anyway,
I guess. Sorry, just being mindful. I think that's about the time that you said you would have maximum.
We've sort of reached the edge of the lines and so on and so forth. Forward to you being over here because there's
it's very soon.
Yes, and it's got increasingly interesting how this Whistler thing may work out.
All right.
I was originally invited. That invitation apparently disappeared.
Okay. Oh, because you saw last week, you thought you might come over, no?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I was pushing that process to find out where it stands, and if I go, it's because I pay full freight and look after myself. I'm going to get no participative support or engagement from the project itself.
Right.
Now, this is a pain in the ass because, well, apart from the functionality. But my interest is in basically having direct conversations with Michel Bauwens and with the people from the Open Value Network group.
Right. Yeah, David Harris is very active in the group at the moment. I don't know him or haven't engaged with him at all. So much looking, Michael Bauwens and Art Brock are kind of the people that are thinking, okay, if it's just to hang out with them for a week, it's already worth the trip. But
exactly. And frankly, you can't do this thing on long distance and conference calls and whatever. There's a total difference about sitting across the table, waving your arms in each other's faces and things like that. You get a totally different. So at this stage, I'm negotiating with Carolyn the manner in which my participation may take place.
Right.
I'm either in as a welcome participant or I'm in as an unwelcome participant.
Okay, but either way, you're coming.
I'm pretty sure I am.
All right.
I'm not absolute on that. It costs money, and I don't have any. It's one of the ironies of the situation that the people who do most of the work, taking like Matt, for instance, got nothing for it. And it's very difficult to create a network of mutual support when the people who are starting it are not getting supported by the people who are taking it. But that's just an existential issue and a bit of a philosophical analysis. But it applies regularly, and I'm rather pissed off with the people at Suncorp. Not that they're spending money. I'm glad they're spending money. I think it's a very good idea that they should spend money. I think they should spend it more intelligently.
Well, I keep telling people that they shouldn't actually overestimate or misunderstand what Suncorp is wanting to do. They're just in for out there ideas and getting a finger on the pulse. I don't think they are actually trying to develop any projects to do any work on the ground or be involved in anything. They're really just how do you call this thing that the doctor normally have to hear you breathing in and out? It's a stethoscope.
Yeah,
they're just doing that. They're just taking a pulse, and for them, the kind of investment that they throw around is really just pocket money. So they're just happy to get an idea. They're not obviously not very strategic about what they support, and if they were strategic, it's all about their curiosity. It's not about what it delivers on the ground against another option that they could have supported.
Oh, entirely so. I don't have any question about their drivers, their motivations, but they are throwing money around, and apparently this particular conference is worth about 150K, and it's only part of what they've been doing in a variety of places. So given that they are hedging their bets and looking for indicators, they're trying to glean information about where the economy is going, because of course their entire business model is in the future.
Sure.
It's a bet against everything. then I'm going to try and persuade them to hedge their bets a bit better and look into other ways of doing things more effectively. So I'm after Tim McNeil on this one, or whatever his name is, the guy who's behind the project for Suncor.
Yeah.
So bear in mind, and you know, I'm trying to put up as many flags on this as early as possible. Is I intend to have an effect at that event. I hope it's a positive effect in all directions. But my primary issue is to get some clarity into a space where unclarity seems to be the order of the day. I've worked with Caroline now on and off for about 4 years. And I totally approve of her intent and her vigor, her desire. But God, she doesn't have her ducks in a line. She doesn't actually know what she's doing at all. And she tends to defer off to rhetoric and other people. Warren will sort it all out. But I'm interested to see what their outcome is on this. I'm also interested to find out if they've got much in the way of participation. A lot of these events put out a big, everybody should attend, you should come if you're a BC.
Yeah. I think for this one, it was really more. It started with just actually a handful of people in the room, and with Suncor doing the stethoscopes thing. So I don't know what the intention is there in terms of numbers even. Then.
Well, Warren says that they're trying to get people to come and pay. Warren says
there is this option. Yeah, I was very doubtful if that's ever going to happen. It's far away for everybody in the world, and the intent, well, the calling being not so clear. I wonder. But well, I couldn't help Karen on that from here, so I was like, all right.
No, absolutely not. No. What deal did they give you? Did they give you expenses and all travel or what?
It's travel expenses basically. Yes, it was always denominated in Canadian dollars and on a fixed amount, and then once I had the tickets booked, it was all right. As I said, it's great to hang out with these guys for a week. And
well, that's the whole point. And my point is, why hold this in my territory? In a field that I was a seminal creator of this field, and not have me there.
Well, I would have wondered. Yes, that's why I asked it in the first call we had.
Well,
cool. Well, I'll get. Unless we get to talk next week, I'll just get in touch the week before I start to travel to confirm which days my other people over there have said I could or could not come to pass by their place, and then I'll check if you're available when I come through Comox. And otherwise, I'll see you in Whistler then.
That's the way to play. But yeah, let's get the date down, the date that you're coming through, because there's quite a lot happening around here at the moment, and it might interface with some of it.
If you already know which day of the week, 28th and following to the work to the summit does not work, then I can just ask the other people who might have less on to accommodate me on the other days.
Well, there's the 28th is a big day around here. We've got a major conference going on.
Oh, that's happening now. Good.
Localizing prosperity.
Right.
Where they brought in various experts to talk about localization, and they're using local experts on localization as well. But I'm not on the agenda at all. They don't want me near it. So that'll be entertaining. 28th is a big day in various ways. I'll send you some information on that. You can see whether you're intrigued by it at all.
Right. That's the first day I'm over there. So that would be, well, it might be a little rush, but maybe it's worthwhile to do it this way around.
No, you wouldn't make it. If you're landing on the 28th, are you?
I need to, let me quickly go into my tickets. My calendar doesn't show me exactly when that will be. And then the 29th and stuff, are you there?
I'm fine after that. The 28th is, I think, the big day on this thing.
All right.
But it's probably you wouldn't be able to get there. But the aftermath of it might be quite interesting. So
it's so many one-way flights. Which one am I looking at? Toronto, Salvador, Manaus, London, Toronto, Canada. Toronto, departure to Toronto to Vancouver, Canada. Hello, times. Oh, here. I think I land in the evening, 9 o'clock at night of the 27th. I'll probably stay in Vancouver that night Well, I could
Yeah.
could make it on the 28th.
It's quite possible. I'll send you the link on this so you see what it's about. You might find it entertaining enough to play for.
Well, and if not the 28th, then I might travel up to my friend on the Sunshine Coast and then come over the day after or
Yep.
Wednesday or something. Cool.
Oh, whenever. I will definitely make time. There's no
Excellent.
no problems with that.
Thank you so much, Michael. Have
Pleasure.
a good day, I guess. It's just starting over there, no?
Well, yeah, we're into it.
All right.
Okay. Thanks very much. Talk to you later.
See you around. Bye.
Bye now.